Buddy, this is Hondo Carpenter. I am your Las Vegas beat writer on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. Good game day to you. Feels a little weird for me because the Raiders are not playing, but it's a great game day anywhere else. Of course, the Raiders have Monday Night Football tomorrow, and you know when it's Sunday, that means we're talking to the one and only my dear friend from the spun.com, probably the best aggregate site on the web. Not probably, it is. Um, I love it. It's in my favorites. It's one of those things I peruse every single morning. I crack up at Matt's writing and as you guys know, I am not a connoisseur of pop culture, and so when I'm able to get my dose of it from Matt, I sure appreciate it. Matt, good to have you on. Merry Christmas, my friend.
Merry Christmas. Always a pleasure to be on, and we're getting to the home stretch here.
Oof, I got to tell you, I enjoy my job, so wins and losses don't change my appreciation for it. But winning sure makes it a lot more enjoyable. As you know, I was at the NFL owners meetings this week. I want to get into a lot of that. But Matt, I want to quickly talk about some Raiders subjects. First of all, Brock Bowers. This guy is nothing short of a superstar. He continues to emerge and play so well. He was the talk, a lot of talk, not the talk, but a lot of the talk of the owners' meetings. People wanted to ask me about Brock. Give me your observation because I think he's good with a lot of room to get a lot better.
Sure, I think that you can make the case that he's potentially the best tight end in the league already. If he's not, he's right up there near the top. At the very least, the Raiders came out of that draft last year with a building block. They got a guy who's a premier offensive weapon. You've said on this show numerous times they were very open. They wanted to take a quarterback, but only if the one that they wanted was going to be available, and there was no method to get to that point. So then they pivoted and they got a guy who might have been the best player overall in the draft. I think, as I've said here before, I think he is the offensive rookie of the year. I expect the award to probably go to either Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix, depending on how the playoff races shake out. But I think when you're talking about who's the best offensive rookie compared to their peers, I think it's Brock Bowers. So a home run pick there by the Raiders.
Totally agree with you. I was talking to someone at the owners' meetings about how good Brock Bowers was, and he kind of hit me a little bit on the shoulder, not just friends, and he said, "Who would you take as your top tight end if you could select any in the league right now?" He goes, "That's the question." He goes, "You think there's anybody in this league that wouldn't take Bowers number one?" He goes, I would take him over Kelsey. And he named 3 or 4 guys that are all really good players. He goes, none of those guys are slackies. None of those guys you'd be disappointed to have. He said, but Bowers is head and shoulders above everybody. Do you agree with that? I do.
I mean, at this point, yeah, when you look at what he's done and how young he is and what he brings to the table later, the best tight ends in the league right now are guys who are still really good, but have played for a long time. Travis Kelsey, George Kittle, some others, Mark Andrews. So they don't necessarily have the long-term upside of a guy like Brock Bowers, who's just finishing his rookie year. So I don't think that's a crazy statement at all to consider him the top tight end in the league already, not even a full season into it.
Now, we know that Tom Brady was already approved at the previous owners' meetings, but that was still the talk. When I talked with people about the Raiders, it was Tom Brady, Tom Brady, Tom Brady. And Mark Davis had some great comments, about he's going to be huge. And I was there. We've put all that video and audio up for everyone to go listen to, all of Mark's comments. But I'm just curious from your perspective, how much will Tom Brady change the Raiders? I think it's going to be massive, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I was even going to mention, as you alluded to, the Mark Davis comments where he basically said he's going to have a big role. Like anything else in the NFL and in sports, it comes down to wins and losses. And if during his tenure, even if he's just, a minority owner, if they start winning and they get back to that, commitment to excellence of the past, then I think he's going to be looked at as having a major impact. It also relates to the quarterback position. If the Raiders take a quarterback this draft, and it's whether it's Shore Sanders or Cam Ward or whoever, and Tom Brady is heavily involved in that process, like it seems like he might be, that's going to affect how he's viewed, not just by Raider fans, but around the league. Um, I've said this numerous times. It's a move that can't hurt to bring a guy like that in who has that much winning pedigree and has that much experience. To bring him into the fold and see what he can offer your organization, it can only be helpful. And now it's just about what Brady can deliver and what it looks like with him. But I think the potential is there for it to be a really impactful um, move for the Raiders to have him buy in, depending on how that quarterback decision shakes out and depending on how they win in the coming years.
Totally agree with you. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. So I had something presented to me, and I purposely waited to talk to you about it. And to talk to John Shop, our Saturday guest, about it. But someone at the owners meeting said to me, if you're Tom Brady and you are going to have a large voice in this operation, and it will be bigger when you're done with Fox, do you really, what does it profit them to make a change at coach? Because do you really think no matter who they pick, the Raiders are going to be that much better next year? And they're going to have, if they have a rookie quarterback, they're going to have to develop him. And they go, and how do you blame Antonio Pierce for all the injuries? Now, you can blame Antonio Pierce for rookie mistakes, but you knew you were getting that with a rookie coach. This person said to me, it doesn't make viable sense to me that you go and get another guy, because if that quarterback fails and that head coach fails, he goes, you have one of the most demanding fan bases who now are going to say, look, your first coach failed, your quarterback failed. They just said that there may be reasons to tap the brakes on Antonio Pierce and let this play out a little bit. I thought that was a fascinating thought. I asked John about it yesterday. I'm going to ask you now. What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting to me. I think that here's the thing: assuming they take a rookie quarterback, then you're looking at, in my opinion, giving Antonio Pierce at least 2 years, not one, because you don't want to fire um, a coach after 1 year with a rookie quarterback, because then you get things all screwed up and it's the timelines are off. And listen, we've seen that happen here in New York with the Jets and Sam Darnold and the Giants and Daniel Jones, where they got rid of their head coaches from their rookie season, and things, it doesn't work out well. So to me, I think going into the off season, obviously these conversations I'm sure are ongoing now, but the Raiders got to look at where they're going to be picking, look at what they're going to do with quarterback, and think, okay, how do we feel about Antonio Pierce being the guy to work with a young QB, a rookie? If they feel okay with that, they feel confident, that I think you have to give him 2 years, because I think at that point, the rookie QB will either have shown that they aren't worth the investment the Raiders made, or they have shown that they are worth the investment the Raiders made, regardless of what the head coaching situation looks like. And then I think you're able to kind of make the move at head coach if you feel that an upgrade is necessary. Or perhaps the pairing of Pierce and a rookie QB works out so well that for 2 years you really think you have your franchise guy at both spots. So I think you either have to move on if you're going rookie quarterback, which we assume the Raiders will. I think you either have to move on after the season, after 1 year, one and done, or you have to be prepared to give Antonio Pierce a couple of years with his own guy at the quarterback position.
All right, let's stay on that mode. I had a NFL executive say something to me the first day of the owners' meetings that blew my mind, and I am apologetic to the listeners. I already talked about it, but that I didn't think of the scenario. But he said to me, let's assume you're Tom Brady and you're looking over this draft class and you think, there's some guys here with potential, but they're going to all get picked way too high. And at those high picks, you can't take risks. Or let's say somebody gets ahead of the Raiders. And so the guy that they want, like last year, they can't get him. He said, what about signing Sam Darnold for 40 mil? And then taking Travis Hunter, which is what you did last year, getting Brock Bowers.
Mhm.
Got to ask you, what do you think if, and now that's assuming either they don't think a quarterback is worth the pick or they can't get to him. What would you think of a scenario where they go at a Travis Hunter and a Sam Darnold?
It's definitely a fascinating scenario. I'm going to make a prediction. I don't think they're going to end up with the number one pick. The draft was held today. They would. I think the Giants are going to get the number one pick because I think the Giants are losing out. And I think the Raiders are going to win one of these last 4 games. I think they're either going to win Monday night, upset the Falcons, who are really struggling, or they're going to beat the Jags. I think they play the Saints, too, which is a game. The Saints have Derek Carr out. I think the Raiders are going to get another win here, at least somewhere. So that's going to drop them out of the top spot. If they're 3-14, say, they're probably picking top 3, so they're going to have a high pick. But you also have to see who else is up in that area to know if you're going to have a chance at a quarterback. So all that stuff has to factor in. To me, I think the veteran route, Darnold is fascinating. He's really turned his career around in Minnesota. He's looked fantastic this year. It's all about how you evaluate that veteran and what you think the trajectory of your team is and the trajectory of your franchise. Because you could pay Sam Darnold. He's not going to get paid what the top of the line quarterback contracts are, but he's going to get paid pretty well.
I was told this week he's a $40 million a year guy.
Yeah, so you're talking about a guy that's mid-range at this point for a starting quarterback. But do the Raiders think that they have the roster talent and will be able to augment the roster with the draft and free agency to pay a quarterback $40 million and win? And I'm not talking about going from, say, 3 wins this year to 6 wins and improving. I'm talking about, can they win and be a playoff caliber team? That's the big question. Because when you make a commitment like that, and I'm not, and you're talking about, you're not saying, sign Andy Dalton for a year or, someone like that, a 1-year bridge QB type thing that they did this year. You're talking about a guy 3-4 year commitment for $40 million, which is what Sam Darnold's probably going to get in that range. You have to be prepared to say, we can win with this guy and we can be a playoff team with this guy. So I think that's it. That's all the stuff that goes into these evaluations and these conversations that front offices have during the season, in the off season. And I think that's how you have to look at it if you're going after a Sam Darnold or a player like that in free agency.
What's the mood in New York with the emergence of Sam Darnold? They have to just feel like utter failures.
Well, I mean, the Jets, it's just been a rough 14 years. I mean, New York football, I was not born yet in the 70s when both teams were really bad. So this is by far the worst era that I can remember. There were bad years for each team or years where both teams weren't very good, in the past, I remember. But we're talking about an extended time period now. And listen, again, I can't judge what it's like without having been there in the moment and experienced it. So I can't, old Giants fans talk about the wilderness years in the 70s, or the Jets talk about back then too. I can't say from personal experience, but to me, it's hard to believe, and I'm not just saying this as a young guy, saying everything's better or bigger now, but it's hard to believe it was worse then for one major reason. And that's just the outreach of the NFL now. Social media, everything. Listen, from growing up in Michigan, when the Lions were bad, people knew the Lions were bad, but you knew the Lions were bad if you were living in California and you woke up on Monday and read the sporting page and said, the Lions lost again. They're 3-7 or something like that. Now the Lions games are on Reds. The Lions are good now, but I'm just using them as an example. Now the Jets and Giants, their games are on Red Zone and they're on national TV or they're on Twitter. And, Saquon Barkley's having big games for the Eagles after the Giants let him walk. And Geno Smith and Sam Darnold are playing great for the Seahawks and Vikings after the Jets couldn't turn them into quality quarterbacks. And all this stuff is a conversation on social media and nationally and to a wide-ranging audience, which just makes it just brutal for both fan bases to deal with. So that's why I kind of feel like this has got to be the worst era for New York football. And, I know I'm friends with a lot of Jets fans, and they're kind of just, they're defeated at this point, a lot of them. They don't know what to do, what to turn to, because you're talking about the longest playoff drought in the major four professional sports, North American sports. They have tried numerous different routes at the quarterback position during this drought. They've tried, it started with Mark Sanchez still there. They tried Geno Smith in the second round. They tried, a stopgap vet in Ryan Fitzpatrick, almost got to the playoffs with him. They tried high picks with Darnold and Zach Wilson. They tried trading for the all-time great future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers, and it didn't work. So it's like, where do we go next? What is our next step if you're the Jets? And so, I think it's been a rough season for them, seeing the success that Darnold and Geno Smith have had. And I think that, it feels like even Aaron Rodgers this past week said, maybe there is a curse on this franchise. Maybe there's something going on that we can't break through. That we got to snap that's causing all this.
I like Aaron Rodgers and I like Devante Adams, but does somebody for Devante's own good need to tell him to shut up? I'm telling you, he is hurting his legacy. I heard one person this week use the word implosion. Does somebody need? This is what I think hurts some superstars sometimes, is nobody around them, that because they're all on the payroll, nobody loves them and says stop, just stop, shut up, don't say another word, keep your mouth shut. I mean, at some point, this is why when everybody's on the payroll, that's not a good thing. Or it's why, at least when everybody is on the payroll, you got to have some guys that aren't yes men. I like Devante the man. I do. I like him. I do. I like everything about him. No, but there are times in my life I don't like everything about me. But somebody needs to care enough to say, shut up. Am I wrong?
I think it's going to be really fascinating to see what his market is this offseason, because he can still play. He's not the all-pro that he was a couple of years ago. He's in his 30s now, but he can still play and help a good team. But like you said, the more he kind of has opened his mouth and facilitated his way out of now multiple places, and he still has not had that success when he's gone to his new home. Not all his fault. I mean, let's say that. I'll admit that. But you're still a guy who you wanted to trade out of Green Bay. Then you weren't happy in Vegas. You wanted to trade out there. Now you with the Jets. And, a team, might be wary of bringing him in 2025, even though they think he can help, because they're afraid of what's it going to be like if things don't work out perfectly right away. And that's an issue that, he has had, I think, is related to, like you said, kind of opening his mouth or forcing his way out of these places. So I think it's going to be an interesting, scenario to see what his market looks like, who goes after him, what they're willing to pay, how many years. It should be fun to watch come March.
All right. Travis Hunter is an elite player. He's a dude in this draft. Everyone loves him. I have not heard one person not speak of him glowingly. And man, the other night at the College Football Awards, it was a record-setting night. Talk about Travis Hunter.
Yes, he became the first player to win the Bednarik Award for that's the top defensive player, and the Biletnikoff for the top receiver in the same year. And he's, we're looking at a guy who has been a tremendous force for two ways for 2 seasons in a row now. Heisman Trophy. He's going to be a great pro, I think, as a cornerback, but also can be a weapon for a team offensively, especially with a creative head coach. He's not going to play two ways like he does in Colorado. It's physically impossible to do that in the NFL. But he could be a guy who can start as a corner and impact your defense right away. And then he can have 10 to 15 plays a game where he helps you out on offense and makes an impact there. So I think whoever gets him is getting the best player in the draft, and it will be interesting to see how these teams that are QB needy at the top go about facilitating. Do they want to take a quarterback, or do they feel that it's in their best interest to just get the best guy on the board and get a Travis Hunter and figure out the QB position someplace else?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I've never heard a player talked about among the NFL the way that they're talking about Travis Hunter. And I didn't hear anyone else use a scenario other than he plays defense with packages on offense. He's going to play both, but you can't play both full. I just think it's fine. And let me tell you, a lot of people have said, look at the Raiders last year with Brock Bowers. There's going to be somebody that doesn't need a corner and doesn't need a receiver that's going to let him go, and they're going to kick themselves in the rear forever. One person even said to me, he is the poster child for taking the best player available, not need. Talking about Bowers and what Bowers showed everybody leading up to Travis Hunter. Finally, we always talk about this because they're always, even though when they're not relevant, they're still relevant. You guys had a story. It looks like the Cowboys are going to have another boring offseason. I'm going to tell you this. I think there's going to be a lot of people around the NFL surprised if Mike McCarthy loses his job. I'm not talking about fans, but having been at the owners' meetings and all of the discussions, I think a lot of people expect Jerry to keep riding the Mike McCarthy train. Like one guy told me, 3 12-win seasons and your locker room loves him. How do you walk away from that?
Seems
Had another person say to me, he goes, he's got the same record as Sean Payton. And he goes, well, Jerry's Jerry, but I don't think they're doing anything. Let's talk about the Cowboys for a minute, even though because the Raider fans love to hate the Cowboys like the rest of the country.
It seems like things have really shifted on Mike McCarthy the last month or so. I mean, it looked like when they were 3-7 or whatever, it was a wrap. He was getting fired and they were moving on. But since then, they won a couple of games. Obviously, they did lose the Monday night game this past week, kind of embarrassing fashion. But, I think that the other thing that complicates matters with McCarthy is the guy that everybody has said that Jerry Jones wanted was Bill Belichick. And now Bill Belichick's off the market and he's with the University of North Carolina. So if you can't get Bill Belichick, where would you turn? Would you go to a Mike Vrabel? Would you go to a big, a big offensive mind and try to, poach one of the up and coming guys? I don't know. The options might not be there for Jerry the way that he first anticipated or people first anticipated. So it does seem like, and I'm not making any predictions, we don't know yet. It does seem like there's definitely a larger chance than people thought that Mike McCarthy's back coaching for the Cowboys in 2025.
Real quick, I'm going to tell you, I think Ben Johnson ends up in Jacksonville.
I think that Jacksonville's a sneaky job for anybody if they believe that Trevor Lawrence is still a guy, because you already have your quarterback and the owner is going to spend money. And it's a division that is a winnable division. It's not, there's no Mahomeses, there's no Josh Allens in that division. So I can see that as a good fit.
Matt, tell everybody where to find you on X.
You can find me at Matt Hladik 919 at MATTHLADIK 919. And I'm always there chatting about ball and willing to interact with people. So come give me a follow.
Make sure you follow him. He's worth it, everybody. We'll see you again next time.